PTF from In the Money Media back with you. Special guest, Race Lens power user Matt Vagvolgyi joining us today to talk about this year's Travers Stakes. Matt, how are things?
Things are good. Things are good. On the road for a little bit here, but I'll get back in time for the Travers. So it's always a good week.
We are going to get to a couple of stats that you found through Race Lens, and then we are going to give picks for the Travers, but do want to let you know that Race Lens, this database program, past performance program that Matt is a power user of, has a really special promotion right now. Quarterly unlimited subscriptions for just $99. The promo code you use, you go to equibase.com, you navigate to the PPs. The promo code is SUMMER99R. This will take you through the Breeders' Cup and is an excellent opportunity to save a whole lot of money. It's a couple $100, I believe, you're saving on that promo. Matt, let's start off by looking at your first stat for Race Lens that we want to be looking at, and I'll let you talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, always looking to bet against the favorite, right? Not to say that I'm completely against Dornick, but hey, let's take a look at a couple different ways or a couple stats that are out there that I think might give you a little bit of pause. And one of the things we've talked about this before, but one of the things I like to do is to see, is there any value in the morning line maker across any track across the country, right? And it's obvious. I think, and I think you as well. David Aragona is one of the best in the business. But it's a great way. You can do this for every single track. You don't have to keep them all active. But for me, is you get a really good sense is how good is the morning line and how often does that horse win races. And why I put this one up there is that Aragona has a ridiculous win percentage and actually a positive ROI in most other races, like allowance races at all distances, claiming, etc. Grade 2, grade 3. This is the one that jumps out to me as a poor negative 79% ROI. I mean, it's only 8 starts when you look at the grade 1s here, 13% win percentage. But it's also, if you look at it through dirt routes, 0 for 3, right? So again, morning line favorites have not been getting it done here, specifically on the dirt, specifically routing on the dirt. And then the addition on top of that, Danny Gargan hasn't had the best meet so far. Just use 0 for 9. It does not include, when I say the meet, it doesn't include the Belmont. So I'm just looking at kind of Saratoga proper in terms of the meet there. So again, a couple different ways to maybe a little bit of a negative approach on Dornick. Like I said, I think this horse has improved incredibly. Personally how much I was against this horse for the majority of the year. But again, sometimes you just have to change your opinion with what your eyes are seeing. And I have completely changed my opinion on Dornick. I think this horse shows a completely different level. Certainly a horse you got to pay attention to here. So it kind of reminds me of Gunrunner. Very much against Gunrunner early on, and I was keying and singling Gunrunner later in the horse's career. So a couple negative stats to look at though from the morning line standpoint to be the favorite.
That's interesting. Yeah, I was very surprised to hear you saying some positive things about Dornick in connection with that particular slide. But we will come to our actual opinions in the race at the end. I do know we have another slide we want to present. I think you can toggle to it on your end there, Matt. And there it is. Talk us through this one that pertains to unmatched wisdom.
Yeah, so give a negative, give a positive, and this kind of gives you an idea of how more detailed you can be when you're running different angles. I'm going to show one here, looking at it from a little bit of a pace perspective, speed perspective early on, and how well these horses have been doing at Saratoga this meet. So I looked at it for horses that are projected to be on the lead at first and second call, right? So you can do it from a basic early pace, projected to be on the lead, but I kind of drilled down a little bit more. Who's projected to be on the lead at first and second call? And for horses that have been on the lead for first and second call for 31 starts, decent win percentage of 23%, but a positive ROI of 7%. So you're getting some value there for horses that are showing that early speed. And another not so new, but I would say fairly new to most Race Lens users, to be honest, is this idea of using miles per hour, feet per second. All of those are additions now to the Race Lens suite. So I looked at it from a miles per hour standpoint, decent sample of 59 starts, not a huge win percentage, but you're getting the value there at a plus 19% ROI. So my point here is that early speed, I think, is deadly. It'll be interesting how this pace works out in this race, considering who's lined up. But it's made me very interested in looking at the number 3 Unmatched Wisdom, who is on the morning line at 8-1.
Mentioned it before. We'll mention it again about this quarterly unlimited plan. $99. Go to equibase.com. Use that promo code SUMMER99R. All right, Matt, now's when the rubber meets the road. I'll give my thought first. I think this pace is going to be supersonic, and I understand the general, stat of speed being deadly. But boy, when you've got, I think the filly has to go from down on the inside. I think that Dornick has to go from the 7. Sounds like on Race Lens, Unmatched Wisdom is going to be right up there in the vanguard. Fierceness isn't a slow horse. You figure maybe he'll do his tracking thing outside, but he's going to attack too. It's going to be fast. The horse that benefits to me the most is Sierra Leone. I love the inside draw for him. I thought he finished up well in an underrated Jim Dandy performance where the speed on paper did not materialize. I think it's Sierra Leone's day, and I really am thinking that he's going to get his close up, his day in the sun in this spot. And for vertical players, if I'm right about this pace, I would keep Corporate Power on side, especially underneath. I think this is a horse that's bred to run 1.25 miles, obviously slower than the others. But between the distance and the pace, I think that can bring him forward enough to maybe complete that exacta if I'm right about this pace. That's how I'm going to be playing the Travers. But Matt, we want to hear your opinion. Who do you like?
Well, it's interesting, Pete. I've heard an awful lot of people, and a lot of people I respect, going for Sierra Leone, and I think it's an obvious pace projection, looking to be very fast. Torpedo Anna's got to go. I think Unmatched Wisdom is going to go. Now, obviously, when you look at Dornick is going to go, but has showed this ability to be on pace but just off, and I think that benefits this horse. So actually, I think Dornick might get a good spot forwardly placed in this race. My problem with, Fierceness to me is a horse that still needs the race to go completely his way. So that's a horse I will completely toss. And I think it'll be a little bit of a takeout reducer because I do think Fierceness is going to take some action today. My problem with Sierra Leone, constantly I'm seeing this horse just so far out of the race early. Yes, has a monster late pace figure, still at the very top in terms of my figures here. But I just think we'll have too much to do. And I think there's also a world where horses may sit back off of whoever gets this lone lead. And that could be Torpedo Anna. That could be Unmatched Wisdom. So for me, I'm not necessarily keying on any horse here. I will be using Torpedo Anna, will be using Unmatched Wisdom, and I will be using Dornick here as my top 3. Not to say that I'm going to throw out Sierra Leone. That's kind of to be determined, but I will be throwing out Fierceness in this case. So those are the horses I'm going to key on based on how I see the pace. And I guess have to look at it from a way where if you let one of these horses go, I think could take everyone as a merry-go-round. But if they do challenge for the lead, I actually think it sets up better for Dornick than it does for Sierra Leone.
Very interesting. Very interesting. There's a couple of things we could drill down on, but we got to talk Torpedo Anna because you're the first wise guy I've talked to that has any interest in betting her. Everybody else we've talked to is, great for the sport, love to see her win kind of thing. But, another one, she's just too slow from everything that I'm looking at. Why do you think she can get so much faster?
Well, I just think from where her post position is, number one, I think that it certainly helps her getting her forwardly placed. Listen, I think for me, this is more of like data and feel, which is, not necessarily always the best thing. I think this horse rises to the occasion and gets better and better and better. And I think you actually might see that. Now, with that said, if pace figures do fall in line, and I do have Torpedo Anna a little bit, below others, this is where I think Unmatched Wisdom could get to that lead. And I just think it could be the scenario where horses sit off and the horse never comes back to the field. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Again, I just think that, I've heard a lot of people that have thrown out Torpedo Anna and a lot of people that are using Sierra Leone very heavily. To me, that's just how my brain works. When everyone gives me the reason to be on one side, I get very interested in the other. But I will say this, I think this will be the most fascinating Travers that I've seen in a very long time, just based on the dynamics of this race and how people are going very hard in different directions and opinions. I'm fascinated to see the board, very interested to see overseas how this race is bet. But I think it's going to be a really fun Travers on Saturday for a lot of different reasons.
Last point, since we're here for our sponsors at Race Lens, interesting you showed the negative stats for Dornoch, but are actually siding with him in many ways. Reconcile that just so people understand how it's still important for you to be able to see those stats, but you might go against them because of your, as you were saying, of feel and other factors.
Yeah, and I've said this before. Data should be your friend. It should not be the reason. I think data helps you provide perspective of a race, and then it's up to you to decide how important that statistic is. Again, I think it holds some water, right? I do think that favorites have really been challenged in these Grade 1 races, but for me, the way I look at it is, I just think on a pace perspective changes that a bit. I think it sets up a little bit better for Dornoch in this case, but again, statistics are the assistant, they're the help. It gives you a better perspective, different ways to look at things, maybe gives you a second look at a horse that your handicapping has thrown out, right? So that's I like to use both. There's the technical side, then there's also the the handicapping side of things. So that's kind of how I look at stats and then how I use them.
Great stuff, Matt. Appreciate you coming on today, and encourage folks to go to equibase.com and check out more from Race Lens.